And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RTPA chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight down to FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? We don't need any more of these.
Hello everybody and welcome to another Cape Canaveral launch. This time we are looking at a Falcon 9 vertical and ready to launch the Starlink 6-77 mission. My name is Adrian Bile, I'm a host for NSF, and yeah, we have a rocket on the pad and hopefully we are just 57 minutes away from seeing a beautiful Falcon 9 launch today from Florida. Let's go around the horn and introduce who is with me on today's cast, starting with Mr. Alejandro Alcantarilla Romero. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. That was your best try, I think, of trying to pronunciate my name.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. It's always a challenge, but I feel like I'm closing in here. Wonderful. Glad to have you on, Alex. And also from the field joining us is Mr. Max Evans. Max, how is it in Florida?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it is a wonderful evening here on the Space Coast. Well, turning into evening here shortly. It just crossed 5 p.m. here local time. Or no, I'm sorry, 4 p.m. local time, daylight savings. That is apparently a thing still. Good Lord. But yes, the sun just came back out. We had a couple of showers earlier, but there's only some minor clouds on the horizon, but mostly some blue skies overhead now. So fingers crossed for good weather on liftoff today.
Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting one. We have some potential iffiness with the recovery weather, if I recall correctly. But the launch weather shouldn't be that big of a constraint. Behind the scenes, we have, of course, Jay Keegan here joining us as the live stream operator for today's stream. And with that, we are fully assembled as a team here and getting ready to cover this rocket. So if you have any more questions about this countdown, about Falcon 9, and about whatever you want, please make sure to ask them in chat using @NASA Spaceflight. And then we can pick them in a handy little tool here, and I can ask them to Alex and Max, which is of course always good because picking their brains with the intelligence is amazing. And let's start with a quick summary here. Alex, what is today's mission? What is today's booster? What are we looking at? And what should we expect for today?
Yeah, so today it's another Starlink, right? as they usually say, it's actually if you've been around for a recent member stream, I think we did. No, hang on, we did not do the member stream of the Vandenberg Starlink. Anyways, but we did the one about the what was the previous one? 1013. Excuse me. Yeah, we did the Starlink Group 1013 mission, which was the previous Cape Starlink, and that was the 200th operational Starlink. So today is a 201st operational, 202nd overall. So by now, a lot of people probably know about Starlink, but either way, let's talk about it. Today's mission is going to the 6 shell, so to speak. It's Group 6-77. And so what that means is it's going to go to a 43-degree inclination. It's going to do these southeasterly trajectories as we had been sort of accustomed to back in early 2024. But then they stopped in the middle of the summer to launch some of the direct-to-cell satellites and whatnot. But then you can see the trajectory for today's launch. We'll probably come back to this a couple of times, for new people and whatnot. And you can see here, one of the things that we sort of get as different from the previous mission. For example, 1013 was that 1013 is 53-degree inclination, so it goes northeast. In this case, it is going southeast, as I was mentioning before, landing on just read the instructions of the coast of the Bahamas. The booster for today's mission will be B1085. That's going to be flying for its third time after having supported the Starlink Group 10-5 mission and the Crew 9 mission just a bit over a month ago, essentially. And so the second stage will do 2 burns as usual. It's going to go into a roughly 160 by 293 kilometer orbit first, and then it'll do a very short burn at apogee to go into a 284 by 293 kilometer orbit, and then we'll do a third burn to get disposed of in the Indian Ocean. You can see there that re-entry path for the second stage. I should say, there are Starlink satellites on board. There are no direct-to-cell satellites. They are all the V2 Mini variant. I don't think they have launched any direct-to-cell satellites to this shell at any point, but maybe at some point they will. And of these, there are 23 on board, so that's usually the number that we tend to see for these Group 6 missions.
There we go. That's quite an overview. And Max, I also want to throw it to you here to give us a bit of a more detailed report of what's the situation with the weather? Where are we? And right now, do you have any concerns from your weather perspective?
Weather for the most part of today has not really been that much of a concern, apart from the stubborn east to west winds coming off of the Atlantic Ocean, which has been an ongoing, nuisance for the past few weeks around here, because we are always getting constant warnings about 18 knot steady state wind state, and also gusting up to 25 plus. It's been kind of annoying. But just for today, the winds have been calmer than usual. I say that up until about maybe an hour and a half ago or so is when they picked back up again once that storm cell passed. But I think the overall concern here for weather is, of course, liftoff winds. I have not seen the forecast for today. Oh, there it is. So 10% chance of, there we go. So in other words, 90% favorable chance of weather at liftoff today, at least in the window. Which is great news, but that still means that they are still concerned about the liftoff winds. And what does that say? The cumulus cloud roll? Yes, so cumulus cloud roll. Last we checked on the recovery weather, swells were up around 6 to 8 feet, which is suboptimal, I guess one could say. But that is, of course, not impossible to land in, and SpaceX has done on a number of occasions. But I think overall, weather is looking good and trending in the right direction today so far, and hopefully it continues to trend that way.
Absolutely, and I want to add the quick note that, of course, the chance of violating, which is 10%, does not include the additional risk criteria. For example, the booster recovery weather. So it's a bit hard for us to fully get the actual odds of weather here. But yeah, we'll see how this develops over time and what SpaceX decides to do. Of course, in about 10 minutes from now, we should have a way better picture if they're going for today's window. With that, I will start to thank somebody here. Mr. Musical Wolves here, with 2 super chats, 2 times $5, and a question attached to this. And this question will first go to you, Alex, because I know you like your statistics. Happy Daylight Savings Day. How many Starlink launches has SpaceX done in total this year? Not sure if you have that handy, Alex.
I was working on it because I saw the question and I was sort of working on it. I know it's been about 2/3 of the launches so far, so say somewhere around 60 to 70.
You will. I will let you further count, but
yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot. Max, do you?
Just in the summer, for reference, because I'm looking here at some of my previous articles. By the way, every quarter I make one of these roundup articles about SpaceX. In the summer, in the third quarter, they did 27 Starlink launches. By the way, so in 3 months, just add up over 3 quarters and October, and so you can get very decent approximation. But yeah.
That's kind of crazy, Max, if you think about it. That means that only this year you have seen 40 to 50 Starlink launches.
Yeah, only. That's still a ton of launches to see in general, especially from here. But with this being their hopefully 109th launch this year, I mean, there's been absolutely no shortage of action either here or in Vandenberg or even Starbase now with them launching at least 3 times, potentially a fourth in not too long from now.
Kinda crazy. And we have some upcoming, of course. We have some interesting manifests the next few weeks, starting with actually tomorrow, where we are getting landing zone return max and also CRS mission. Excited for that?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's always a special day whenever you have Falcon 9 and, of course, Dragon out at 39A, because, of course, it's the best pad that, or it's the pad that's eased more. I cannot talk. What is speaking today? 39A from the press site is the most prominent launch pad and the easiest to see from the press site, which is where we are. And it is just so photogenic and just wonderful. And of course, adding that on, it is a nighttime RTLS, so if the skies are clear, we should get a wonderful nebula effect from the booster performing its boost back burn in order to come back over to land on LZ1. And then of course sending Dragon off to the ISS on a 51.6 degree orbital inclination orbit. So yeah, it's always exciting seeing Falcon 9 and Dragon out there, and especially a day after a Starlink launch. We are never going to complain about 2 launches in 2 days. And as you can see on the right side of your screen, Falcon 9 and Dragon are now currently at the base of 39A, waiting to go vertical, hopefully in not too long from now.
Interesting indeed. So 2 Falcon 9s at the Cape here. One getting ready to launch in 47 minutes. The other one has a day more to wait. So we're getting there. Alex, I will throw some questions here at you. Lots of random asking, do Starlink's missions ever have stubby nozzle? And I will add
No.
a disclaimer, if not, why?
Well, the whole reason why they don't really have the stubby nozzles is because when they launch Starlinks, they are constrained actually not by the volume of how many Starlink satellites they're carrying, right? How many they can fit in the fairing, but they are actually constrained by the mass, right? If you add the mass of the satellites plus the payload dispenser and whatnot, it's a very very lightweight dispenser, so to speak. It only has the rods and a bunch of other adapters at the base of the stack and everything. But still, that adds mass to the whole thing. And so Falcon 9 is literally at the limits of its performance for these types of missions without really having to go expendable. If they were able to go expendable, they would probably be able to fit like a couple of more, well, not a couple, but more like 6-7 satellites more onto the stack. And then you get into the issue of the volume. But before getting to that issue of the volume, you have the issue of the performance of the rocket. And with the stubby nozzle, what happens is that it's cheaper, but you are essentially throwing away a lot of the efficiency of that big nozzle on the MVAC engine. And so the efficiency just goes down. The performance of the full rocket also goes down because a lot of the work to get into orbit is actually done by the second stage rather than the first stage. And so, yeah, it's not really like if you put together, because you could say, well, but since it's cheaper, you can launch more times and just compensate. And it's like, yeah, but really, does it compensate, right? And it's like you can just launch the same amount of times. And I think that's probably the whole trade-off that they're trying to do here, right? That they don't launch with a stubby nozzle. They could, right, and just launch more often and launch as many satellites per launch. There will be fewer. There will be fewer satellites, but overall they could be more because they could launch faster because it's cheaper and whatnot. But do they really have that capacity to launch as fast, so fast that they can offset that? I don't know. Probably not, and probably why they always fly with a full nozzle.
There we go. There's your answer about that. So yeah, probably not any stubby nozzles on Starlink anytime soon.
Yeah.
Sad Max Evans noises.
The
Boo.
the missions that you will see this this stubby nozzle is things where like a small satellite going to low Earth orbit or something like that, right? Something in the order of like a couple of tons going to low Earth orbit or to a polar orbit or something like that, and then you can like that's a very easy lift for Falcon 9. It can just go sometimes even do an RTLS on the booster and also have the stubby nozzle. And so that's the type of missions where you will see that kind of nozzle, but definitely not on Starlinks. Not, for example, either on GTO missions. GTO missions, they also want to get as much performance out of that. GTO being geostationary transfer orbit, right? Because it's a high energy. And even when the payload is light, and I'm sort of making a segue here, even when the payload is light, what they do is they just return the booster back to the launch site instead of deploying the drone ship. And we have had already one type of GTO mission like that with the Ovson 3 satellite earlier this year. And now, perhaps in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a similar thing with the KoreaSat 6A satellite. So as you can see, sometimes the trade-off is, if I can just turn the booster back to land instead, I may just put the full nozzle. They do the same for crew missions, for example, and for CRS as well. You'll see that tomorrow.
There we go. And we are just a few minutes away from SpaceX starting the countdown here with Falcon 9. And hopefully we see some signs then of a liquid propellant being loaded into this Falcon 9 in the form of condensation on that rocket. We will start to play that game of let's spot the condensation in a few minutes from now. So if that's your favorite game on launch day, we will play that. 38 minutes before T0 is when the launch director will verify go for propellant load, and the flow of propellants will start at 35 minutes. And there you can see the handy countdown timeline. Of course, with some other steps, we'll go into more detail later, but we also have the T-minus 20-minute vent, the LOX chill down coming up, and then, of course, the startup of Falcon 9 1 minute before launch. So there's a quick overview of what you're about to see in the next 41 minutes and 57 seconds. And Alex Sukramdi, I'm sorry, was wondering whatever happened to Falcon 9 landing in the Bahamas.
I wonder the same. We heard earlier this year about this, right? And we even had communications permit, because every time they launch, they need this, they need a permit from the Federal Communications Commission to be able to transmit signals and whatnot. Now they have a blanket permit, but back in the day, I say back in the day, earlier this year, they still had these individual permits still being applied for each mission. And there were some missions where the landing zone was in the middle of the Bahamas, the Exuma landing zone, as they called it. And those were for 53-degree inclination missions, just like we've seen, for example, the last Starlink that I was just mentioning, Group 10-13 out of here from the Cape, that went to 53-degree, but it went northeast. You could, in theory, go southeast, but instead of going, off the coast of Bahamas, you just land in the middle of the islands, right? In the little piece of water that is sort of in the middle. And so the thing is, we also had heard, at least from the Bahamian government, I guess it's the way to say it, that they also had agreed with SpaceX to go ahead with these landings. I have no idea what's the state of that. Unfortunately, I have not seen anything about that. I really don't know why SpaceX did not pursue this. Maybe the Northeast launches were more attractive. I don't know.
There we go. That's if Alex doesn't know, that's always the problem. There's probably no better answer out there. So there you go. No Bahamas launch landings for now. Let's see here. I don't know this answer of this question. Does the ISF have daylight saving time or not? I don't know. Do they?
They
Probably
work
not,
on
right?
UTC.
Yeah, I was wondering, like they work on UTC, so no. So they're spared of that. I always get my sleep schedule like turned over because of daylight savings, and also I get the meeting schedule at NSF turned over. We're back to normal this week, right?
Yeah, we're back to
Nice.
normal. 6 hours to Eastern time, 7 hours to Central time, and 9 hours to Pacific, which
Oh, wonderful.
use a little bit more rarely, but we still use it. By the way, I did the math on the Starlinks so far this year. They've done 64 Starlinks. So this is the 65th.
Nice. That's quite a lot of Starlinks. How many more Falcon 9s do you think we will see this year, Alex? Like, what's your guessing estimate spreadsheet saying? How many more Falcon 9s until the end of the year?
Well, my spreadsheet is saying that at the current rate, they will get to around 125 Falcon launches. So plus the 4 expected Starship launches this year, that will be about 129 overall. I think there's a good chance they might get to 130 Falcon launches by just squeezing a little bit more there, the flight cadence and whatnot. It will not need record turnarounds, by the way. I think we talked about this in the Flame Trench, where, I said if they do 12 and 13 launches, whatever month, right? Like 1 month do 12, the other do 13. The record is 14 in 1 month. So they will not be breaking any records of turnaround time, of pad usage, whatever. So without breaking turnaround records, in theory, they could push a little bit more than recently and get 130 out the door. Whether they will be able to, I have no idea. But they seem to be pushing at least this month of November. So we'll see what they do. I think there's a good chance that they do 130 for Falcon, so 134 overall.
There we go. That's your unofficial prediction on how many more Starlings that the launch director should verify go for launch around this moment for now. Max, what's the actual flight path for this launch? I know we talked about it earlier, but Chris Barnett is wondering, and I wonder if we can quickly recap. Where's this rocket flying and where's it landing?
So actually, real quick before we do that, SpaceX literally just tweeted that all systems are go, and they have just begun propellant load on Falcon 9 for tonight's mission, which is always good news. But
Nice.
to answer that question, Falcon 9 tonight is heading off on a 43-degree inclination, so that is heading southeast. So if you are in Cocoa Beach, Satellite Beach, Vero Beach, what is it, Fort Lauderdale and Miami, you should have a really good view of tonight's mission, of course. Not to say that if you're north of the pad, you won't. But if you're in, like, say, Daytona or anywhere up that way, it will not be flying in front of you. It'll be flying away from you. But tonight it is flying southeast toward the Bahamas, and hopefully that will be the case in just over 35 minutes.
I also forgot to mention, actually someone brought it up in chat, like, what about the fairings? Because we talk about the booster landing on JRTI instructions. The fairing halves will be recovered today by Bob. I believe it is the one out there.
Can confirm.
Nice. And the second stage will deorbit after the mission, correct, Alex?
Yep, it'll be the orbiting.
There we
The
go.
green dots, I've just seen River there, Dave. It's just essentially the area of the hazard zone. It's not any special thing.
Yeah, it's just like the borders of the
Yeah.
hazard zone, right?
Yeah.
James,
When they issue those notices, that's essentially all the dots, and then you have to literally join the dots.
James Atkinson is wondering, I do wonder if it might be more efficient for SpaceX to have a drone ship with 2 landing decks. What do you think? I mean, okay, I will just start here because I have thoughts. On the one hand, that might seem interesting. On the other hand, you would also risk a booster way more, right? Because we know like, the moment they are out at sea, that's the moment where they are really at risk to tippling over or, like, losing them at high seas or stuff. So I wonder if this would be like a huge trade-off, and they would just have a high chance of losing them, even if they had two landing legs. And also, it would require probably quite a lot of modification to their current fleet. So that's my thoughts on this.
Well, You say that, but I think obviously one, the more usable landing space on a drone ship, the better. Of course,
True.
more space, more better. But they have landed a Falcon 9 booster at LZ2 when there was a booster already at LZ1 back in 2022. I think it was the Hakuto R Mission 1 went to either LZ1 or LZ2 when there
Yeah.
was a first stage booster stationed over at the opposite landing pad from a OneWeb mission. So, and yes, obviously the LZ1 and LZ2 are not super close together. Certainly not if you had a bigger drone ship, for example. But I wouldn't put it past them if they just made a bigger one for more space. But I think with the cadence that they are launching at right now, I think it would just make more sense to incorporate a third drone ship into the fleet here on this side of the states.
Yeah, I think my counterpoint to bigger drone ship would be why not more drone ship? Like
Exactly.
if you think about bigger drone ship, why not make drone ship more instead of bigger?
It's probably
Um,
easier as well because if you have an extra drone ship, the whole deal with like trying to return the booster, you don't need to wait for the other launch to happen, right? Like you can just return the booster back
Yeah.
and turn around that drone ship and keep launching. Otherwise, you're just holding up that drone ship for 2 launches, and then it's like, yeah, but now you have to come back, process those 2 boosters, get them out of the barge, and then go out again. So you have a big gap in between. It's like it doesn't make sense, right?
And you're also extending the refurbishment time in general. So yeah, it's I think more drone ship would be better. We want more drone ship. Let's see here. I have no idea if this Max is it. There's a question here. Is it still visible all the way in Charleston, South Carolina?
It really depends on the direction of the flight path and also time of day. So for today, unfortunately, no, because it is flying southeast and, of course, not flying up the east coast of the U.S. However, tomorrow night's mission, CRS-31, since it's flying on a northeast trajectory going to the ISS and also with it launching at night, you may not be able to see the initial part of the flight, but if you're on the coast, you may be able to see Stage 2 flying away with its, I do have to say, somewhat tough visibility in terms of Stage 2, I guess, exhaust gas expansion. So yes, if it's flying northeast and you're flying at night or at twilight, so you get a nice jellyfish, yes. But tonight, unfortunately, it is not possible.
There we go. That's your quick summary, if it's possible. Alex, Mr. Goose here wondering, nice name by the way, has there ever been a launch director no-go for launch?
Yeah, there's been a few, especially when, they're just loading the rocket and they're trying to see if the weather clears and things like that. They've done that multiple times where the weather is a little bit iffy and they think it's going to clear on time. And most of the time, they're lucky and it clears on time and they give the go. But other times, unfortunately, it is not. And then they say, well, abort procedures, no go and whatever, right? And so they go through the whole thing of standing down for the day. There's also been other times as well where they have paused the clock either before startup or right after startup. I remember, for example, I think it was Cruise 6 or maybe Cruise 7 where they had a problem, an issue with a T-tab ground umbilicals. For example, they
Yes.
had this clogged filter on the line because a lot of people probably are not aware of this. They start up the engines with ground fed T-tab, and so these lines need to be properly cleared out, and so they have all of these filters, and it was clogged that day, and they were trying to work it out without stopping the count and everything, because otherwise they will not be able to launch. And they were trying, and unfortunately, they had to say, okay, it's not working. Let's just pause the clock, and that's what they did. So yeah, there's been a few times where there's been a no-go for launch.
And mind you, until they actually begin prop load. So if they have not begun prop load, they do have the luxury, if they have a launch window, to seek further opportunities in that window. Say if it's 2, 3, or 4 hours long. But once they begin prop load, they are committed to whatever T0 that leads up to. So they're in, of course, with their systems around the rocket and with the rocket itself, there is not enough time to recycle all of the systems, especially with the Super Chill RP1, to attempt to launch on a different T0 within that window. So prior to prop load, ability, whether it be weather or ground system troubleshooting, but once they begin prop load, you are committed.
And I think I wonder if it's always hard to make this call with these bushes there in the way, but I think I see some condensation at the bottom of the rocket, so I think we can safely say that Falcon 9 is in prop loading, if I'm not fully mistaken here.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to see yet because it's just barely above the bushes, but once it will start to rise, you will easily be able to see it. Yeah, you can see a frost ring there. You can see there's a distinguished different white that is rising in a very clear, sharp way at the bottom of the rocket, and that is condensation from the fuel.
You
can also see. Oh, go ahead, Max.
No, I was just going to say that with these younger boosters, whether it be under like 5 flights and under, because the amount of soot that they have built up on the tank surface is not, I guess, it's not that dark in shade. It becomes a lot more difficult to see that frost line when that does begin to appear on both LOX and RP1 tanks. And I can't really see it myself yet. I can't see it myself on the screen yet. I could zoom in and will zoom in later. But if you guys have eyes on, that's really good news. And of course, as a booster gets older and has a lot more soot on it and gets darker, that frost line contrasts a lot better against a dark surface, and it becomes much more easily visible.
Yeah, I'm 100% confident I see it yet. I see it now. So Falcon 9 definitely is in prop loading.
I mean, SpaceX themselves has said it, so I guess that's also good news.
Yeah, usually, like, the launch provider actually kind of knows if their rocket is in prop loading. It's
one would hope so.
Crazy thing. Actually, this question. So we always assume everybody has at this point seen like 5 million Starlink launches. So I want to throw you this, Max, here, because I think we should give it a quick overview. Do we know what these satellites will be used for? Internet, GPS, navigation, robotaxis. What are these? Like, what are Starlinks? Max?
So the Starlink constellation in general is SpaceX's plan and path forward to providing internet to every corner of the globe, put simply. And of course, they have their more dedicated satellites for cellular use, with their direct-to-cell constellation. And then, of course, they have their satellites which are used for government use called Starshield satellites, which we know next to nothing about. And they are often classed as, I think, NROL missions, or at least that's what we think they are. But the Starlink constellation in general is primarily an internet constellation for those anywhere on the world who have a Starlink dish who want to use it for accessibility reasons. So it is primarily for internet.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, it's always the thing I think we need to mention from time to time, because we always assume that like everybody has seen a Starlink at this point, but of course there's new people watching these, and we should recap that from time to time. I want to also thank RC Horseman here for $10 super chatting here, saying for tree trimming gear.
Oh gosh.
Yes. I'm not sure if the Cape would be very happy if we start to trim these trees, but hey, I mean, still thank you so much, RC Horseman, and thanks everybody who's watching these streams or is liking or subscribing to these, because that all helps us out. And hey, like and subscribe is something you can support us with. That is actually completely free. So if you have not done that, make sure to do that below the video. And with that, we are just 25 minutes away and 5 minutes away from the famous, I should say, the legendary, I'm not sure if that's the right term, T-minus 20-minute event, now approaching here slowly. And Falcon 9 here, well progressing in its countdown to launch more internet satellite. let's see if I have more questions for you. The Outer Limits here is asking, would there be any possibility that they might build an artificial island tethered to the sea bottom, like an oil rig for landings? Alex, why is a stationary landing platform probably not a good idea?
Well, unless you're flying always to the same location, which, frankly, for some Starlink missions, they do. But for other general missions, they don't. So if you have like a tethered kind of artificial island or oil rig or whatever, I mean, unless you are able to move it around, then sure, right? But then if you can move it around, why not have just a drone ship, right? And so that's my take on that. I know it's one of the usual debates, especially for Starship, right? I think maybe for Starship it will probably make a little bit more sense, in the sense that, especially when they actually go to Mars, whenever that happens, they'll probably have a very similar trajectory for all those missions. And so if you're going to have a bunch of missions like back to back to back to back, etc., right? If you're going to have so many missions like that, then it kind of makes sense probably to have some assets downrange, if you want to actually have, like think, for example, something like launching out of Boca Chica and then landing in the Gulf of Mexico with a booster, and then launching again out of there, right? And then you have like more flights out of that. I don't know, like it's an interesting thought, but definitely not for Falcon 9. Falcon 9 does not have the cadence, and as I was saying before, it is true that for specific Starlink missions, they do sometimes essentially have the same trajectory. Like whenever they launch Group 6 missions, they've been always to the southeast. They launched Group 10 missions, they were to the northeast. Sure, you have always that same general trajectory, but they keep alternating them. Like the previous Starlink out of the Cape was northeast, this one is southeast, the next one is going to be southeast, but maybe the following one will not be, and so it probably doesn't make sense.
There we go. Let's see here, as we are Bob Fillmore joining the NSF Laser Tree Trimmer Fund with a $10 super chat. We are now at lasers, apparently. We wanna use lasers to trim these. It's barely, I mean, we can see most of the rocket. Like, it's not that bad. We can see most of it. I think we will survive, everybody. So yeah, you can see rocket on the right now, a bit more zoomed. Do you have like two cameras there, Max?
Indeed, I do. I have one camera that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, which is punched into about 1,000 millimeters equivalent on a Panasonic Lumix BGH1, setting to you guys on the right. And then also on the left, I have a camera set to a wider perspective to give you a better look of how the landscape looks from the press site looking out towards Slick 40, which, as you can see, is very green.
Yep, absolutely. I want to quickly acknowledge here Mark Garrett's gifting 10 Red Team memberships. That's our Mark, our webmaster Mark, now gifting Red Team memberships in our stream here. Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, I mean, why you do this? You're our webmaster. Thank you so much. And let's see here. I think at this point I will not ask another question. Well, I will ask another question, but I will ask a very specific question to Alex. That I'm trying to. Maybe you can tell I'm trying to stall for a bit more time
10
here.
seconds.
Yep. So there's another vent here coming up, Alex. The T-minus 20-minute vent. Do you mind explaining me what this vent that is about to start now is doing?
There she blows.
And there it is. It's starting to appear there from behind the crew tower. So yeah, that is the LOX chill down vent. Essentially, they are now chilling down the liquid oxygen line to the second stage as they prepare for loading that liquid oxygen in just 4 minutes from now onto the second stage. So they have already loaded the RP1 kerosene on the second stage, and now they are transitioning to do that. There are separate lines, but it's sort of like this phased kind of approach that they do for loading the second stage. While on the first stage, both RP1 and liquid oxygen are loaded at the same times, the second stage goes a little bit different. And so now they are conditioning those lines. That is very important because you're flowing this cryogenic liquid, right? Nearly minus 200 degrees Celsius, a bunch more degrees negative in Fahrenheit. I don't even gonna attempt that. But yeah, it's very cold, and you have this line essentially out there in the open in Florida weather. And I tell you, that is not definitely a good thing to do, to flow your liquid oxygen just nilly-willy into that line. And so you need to condition that. That what we see is actually the condensation of the air humidity, which there's a lot in Florida, by the way, for those that have not been there. There's breaking news, I guess. But yeah, it's that condensation as the vent that gaseous oxygen. What they do is they flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the line. Instead of at full flow, they just flow a little bit through it. It conditions that line, and of course, the liquid oxygen turns into a gas, and they need to vent that. That is what we're seeing there.
There you go. That's the explanation about the T-minus 20-minute vent. And with that, we just have T-minus 18 minutes to go here until this rocket flies. Max, there's a question here if we could have a windsock in frame to give a wind indication. I think this shot is fairly zoomed in, right? So it'd be pretty hard to place a windsock there.
Yeah, it would, but also I think the moisture and the gases coming out of the transporter erector right now serve themselves like a windsock, in that it's showing the direction of the wind flow as it is right now. And of course, right now it's blowing at about southwest right now, and that is exactly where you can see the vapors going. So while we might not have a windsock, I think that might be, at least for now, a good temporary substitute, perhaps.
So you're telling me that T-minus 20-minute vent is an expendable windsock?
One could say that, and same with any other venting coming out from the rocket or the TE.
Yep, I'm just establishing this as a fact.
Jay in the back channel is like, we have the most expensive windsock. Yes, we do. Indeed, we do.
SpaceX, reusable rockets, expendable windsocks.
Do better.
Disclaimer, this vent, as explained before, is primarily not to be a windsock. Just making sure that we have said that. Let's see here. 60 minutes, 50 seconds to go here as Falcon 9 very much deep into the countdown already. Alex, this is the TE that flips back, right? Like we will see a complete TE, like a bit of TE flip back and everything at launch.
Yeah, so this is, sometimes we see, for example, well, sometimes always, at Vandenberg, that older Falcon 9 launch pad, they have the Stromback, the old style Stromback, where they retract the whole thing all the way to 77 degrees instead of just one. I shouldn't say 77, more like 23 degrees of vertical, 77 of horizontal. Here, instead, what they do is they open the clamps at the top near the fairing, and then it retracts only like a 1.8 degree out from the rocket, and then it throws back the whole way at liftoff. That is a newer version of that than the one that we see at Vandenberg. That is the old style, but since they are still using it, I guess this is still current style. I don't know, but yeah.
Yep, absolutely. It's
13 degrees. I'm sorry.
It's always. Oh, I will forgive you.
Because I said 77 plus 23. It's not 90. That's yeah. Thank you, Jeffrey Artunel.
Math is hard on stream,
especially nearly midnight.
Yep. Oh yeah, true. Another question here is about the direct-to-cell satellites, which are not on this launch, but I will still ask this question. The direct-to-cell constellation is almost complete. Will SpaceX continue to expand the direct-to-cell constellation or keep it at this standard amount? Alex, have we heard anything about that?
Yeah, so if you watch our latest This Week in Spaceflight episode, which you should watch all Fridays here on our channel, the one of the things that we showed is that one of the senior directors at Starlink, he said that there's going to be 5 more launches until the first commercial constellation of DTC is completed. Now that is not to mean that they're going to be stopping, because there's more constellations that they have planned. They have a roadmap of like multiple different constellations. Actually, once they get the more satellites and more bandwidth up there in space, they will be able to do things like voice messaging instead of text messaging that they are doing right now. And so they're obviously going to be expanding that DTC constellation, that direct to cell constellation. We're going to see a lot more launches, and we're also going to see that on Starship as well, with whatever version of that they'll have of the version 3 of the Starlink bus. But yeah, that's what we expect to see, because more satellites means more availability, right? More chances that you're gonna get more satellites on your phone, and so actually less latency and more bandwidth that you are gonna be able to, and more coverage as well that you're gonna be able to get.
I have to read this. Kevin Michael Reed is asking, have we mentioned the best ship 26, on the stream yet? And I want to point out the fact that, Alex, we are in the minority here, because Max is, I think, is ship 26. Jay is. Kevin is around. It is.
Jay is.
So I think
wasn't.
Jay is. Yeah, Jay is also team ship 26. So yeah, it's a bad state of the stream.
Is it a thing now? Is it a thing now where, like, to satisfy our one and only Chris Bergen, that like since we have to mention shuttle at least once for him, that we had to mention ship 26 for Kevin?
Yeah, we were like, everybody gets their buzzword. Like you get to mention like one buzzword per stream, and you get them to get us to say it.
I cannot wait until that thing is just scrapped.
Fly it on Booster 12's first reflight. Boom, problem solved.
No, it's flying.
I assume they're going to be reflying.
It's flying to the scrapyard. Anyway,
not a long flight because it's already there. But
Chris in the back channel saying shuttle and ship 26 in the same breath is heresy. Is that the right pronunciation? Hearsay? I'm sorry. It's not my game.
I don't even know what.
Can a native speaker help me? Max.
I'm not even sure. Like, is that heresy? Is that what that says?
There we go. Okay, and I don't feel bad anymore because
heresy,
Max also doesn't know.
Heresy, like one of those two. Heresy. Thank you, Chris.
Heresy. Thank you. Oh God, we just outed ourselves as very uneducated. There we go. Let's see here. Oh, this is the one. Max! Thanks for the great coverage. First of the part of the question, that's not the question yet, but the second part of the question is, when do you think we will see Starship and Super Heavy launch from KSC?
Well, first, thank you for watching. It is always a pleasure to bring y'all these views. But to answer the question, I hope sooner than later. I want to say 2025 is a little optimistic in terms of flight operations. We could very well see the first hardware get here, maybe see some testing, whether it be cryo testing or just ground system testing. That is probably well within the cards for next year. But to see Starship Super Heavy fly from here next year would be absolutely insane. And I do hope that's the case, as unlikely as it may seem. But if not 2025, then for sure at least 2026.
There we go. I think that's a likely prediction. You know what date it is today, Max?
What is today's date, Adrian?
It's the 3rd of November. The 3rd of November means we are past October. And you know what being past October means?
Oh, God.
I'm listening now to my Christmas playlist 24/7. And you know what's the other best thing to celebrate 2 months of Christmas madness? It's the NSF Christmas items. We have sweaters again, knitted sweaters. There you can see them. one of them, one of the new ones, honoring Starbase. The other one also honoring the epic Polaris Dawn mission. Also, we have blankets now, apparently, which are amazing. I mean, that's so cool. They are all knitted. They're like really like proper knitted wear. They're not like a print on or anything. So they're really comfortable, really warm, and we want to make sure that everybody who wants them orders them before they can no longer reach you before Christmas. So if you want them, make sure to order as soon as you can see the Raptor beanie. Isn't that cool to wear a Raptor beanie? And yeah, I'm a very big Christmas guy, so enjoy me being hyped for Christmas for the next 2 months. But yeah, there's your Christmas items for NSF. You can get them at shop.nasspaceflight.com. I think they're amazing. I honestly really think they're really, 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 really cool item. So if you want to support us and get something amazing in return, check them out. That's it. Let's go back to the rocket.
I think it's pretty easy to tell that Adrian is a very big Christmas fan, or maybe not.
Yeah. I am. I think it's a cozy...
I was joking. I was joking, Adrian. I know.
It's a cool thing. You know what also is a cool thing? Liquid oxygen, which is right now still being flowed into the Falcon 9 here in front of us, as it's almost topped off for the launch in just 8 minutes and 22 seconds from now for Starlink 6-77. Friendly reminder again, this launch can no longer slip. It will either launch in 8 minutes and 15 seconds or not at all today. So that's your situation. There's the countdown. We will enter the engine chill phase in 1 minute from now. Alex, what's engine chill?
Well, you remember the T-minus 20-minute vent that we talked about earlier, and that I explained that they need to flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen so that the line does not get, this sudden thermal shock and everything, because it's at, essentially ambient temperature from Florida weather, right? Well, the engines do go through the same thing, because the engines have a liquid oxygen pump, and so through that you'll have a lot of liquid oxygen flowing once those engines start up. So what they do is they open the pre-valves to those pumps, and they allow some of that liquid oxygen flow into the pump. Very small flow of that liquid oxygen. They have essentially also like what are called bleed lines that allow the that liquid oxygen will heat up and turn into a gas, and so there are like little escape gases on the bottom of the octaweb that allow that engine chill gas to escape. But it's very similar to what we see on Starship as well. We see also those engine chill lines and everything, although on Falcon 9 it's a little bit more hidden because it's literally at the bottom of the booster, and so it's not as visible.
I have to thank some support here. This is once again you're absolutely amazing, everybody. Starting with Josephine with the super chat. Thank you so much. And then we have Dimas Recon with the $20 super chat. Saying if Mariah starts playing, I'm quitting NSF. I think we will not play Mariah Carey anytime soon.
Yeah, thankfully that is not going to happen due to the simple fact of copyright. But I think
that's the only thing stopping me.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also the fact that Mariah Carey has thawed is a sign of the times, I guess, in Adrian's squeals and happy noises.
Yep, absolutely. It's the number one song on my playlist, and usually the number one song in my yearly Spotify review. I'm not even kidding. And then I also want to thank Russell Snodgrass with the $100 super chat here.
Holy cow.
Holy smokes, Russell. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a very regular name. We read all the time. You're always there. Thank you so much, Russell. Also the message, maybe they should move Ship 26 and Booster 12 to the Cape for test articles of the new GSE at the tower and first Cape launch.
Sold.
No,
Send it.
Don't give
Sold.
them hope.
Don't
give them hope. Really.
No, hear me
Do
out.
it and then dump
hear me
them
out.
in
Hear
the-
me out.
in
Hear
the
me out,
Trim
guys. Hear
Basin.
me out. The first launch from the Cape will not be a V2 Starship and V2 booster. It will be Ship 26 on Booster 12.
Oh.
Just dump them in the turn basing.
Yeah, no. I'm just disagreeing. I just disagree. I'm unsubscribing from your newsletter, Max.
I don't
sorry.
have a newsletter, Adrian.
If you had one, I would unsubscribe right now.
That hurts. Ouch.
I know.
Owie.
I
That hurts my soul.
hearing that now, I would resubscribe.
No, just kidding.
Charlie here with the store message saying, "Keep up the awesome work." Thank you so much, Charlie. And we will see what Charlie got. Charlie got a beanie. And with that, I hope you have a beanie or something else to protect you if it's getting cold, Max, because we're sending off to track a rocket launch.
It is indeed that time, everybody. But thank you very much, gentlemen, and I will see y'all on the other side.
Good luck tracking. And with that, I think we will start to hear sometimes SpaceX comms to talk. So we will hear into that in the next few minutes. And we are just 4 minutes away again from this rocket booster here to take flight. It's basically just a baby as a rocket booster, right? It's just a third flight.
Yeah, just the third flight.
That's basically baby in Falcon 9 terms.
You can still see the Falcon 9 logo and everything. Well, not in this view because you have the sun kind of blinding the camera, but yeah, we were able to see that before as well. So yeah, we're getting also close to that launch, 3.5 minutes to go. And so, we are essentially on the last few steps of the count. You can see there they have retracted the Stromback. They are getting ready to wrap up the liquid oxygen load on the first stage. And then about a minute later, that'll be the same for the second stage. And once those two steps are completed, the Falcon 9 will be fully loaded with propellants. And then they're going to start the gas closeouts, all of those, nasty bits of liquid oxygen trapped on the lines and everything. They're going to go out. They're going to depressurize and everything, all of those systems, and get them cleared out for liftoff.
There we go. I want to thank quickly Austin Skirvin here with a $5 tip at tips.spaceflight.com saying how many skirls could they launch on a Falcon 9? It's another Starlink.mp4.
Launch pressure countdown 1. Hold. Standing down for helium stage 1.
Well. Remember what somebody asked? Like, is there any time where they say no go? That's what they say when they are no go.
Yep, they just said no go. Just to confirm it, we just had a triple hold call from SpaceX. That at this point in the countdown means a scrub for today. Starlink 6-77 will not launch today. We can confirm that, right, Alex? Like that's the reality here.
And also, it sounded like they have an issue with the helium on the first stage. The helium is used for pressurization and also for starting up the engines in flight. So that, it could be either of those things that are being under trouble today. And usually when there's some kind of mechanical issue like this, they like to stand down and then take a look at it if they cannot solve it remotely. And it's true that, if you cannot solve it remotely, you probably are not going to be able to recycle in the same window. So even though, if they were able to actually recycle within the same window, they still have the issue that maybe they want to look at it physically and get people out there and take a look at it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they directly thanks, by the way, for directly confirming that they have an helium issue, because that at least gives us an idea of what is happening here. So yeah, they have an issue with the helium, probably something out of the norm, something not as they wanted to see it just 2 minutes before going to space, and that's why the launch director just called a triple hold. And we didn't have that briefing this time, but a triple hold always basically means stop.
Yeah.
That's a real shame. That's a shame.
Yeah.
But also, it's also peculiar to see a problem like this come up on a new booster. I say new, a young booster, I should say, one that has less than 5 flights on it. In this case, this would be this one's third. But nonetheless, I'm sure SpaceX will be on it the instant the propellant is clear from the tanks and the pad is safe to approach.
I also want to quickly give an info about the question, how many squirrels could you launch on a Falcon 9? Apparently, in the back channel it was calculated, could be up to 138,000 squirrels. But anyway. Just pointing this out. But yeah, this is scrap for now. They're now moving into detanking operations. And making sure that this rocket is safe and sound before they, of course, then approach the rocket. And we'll see what exactly is happening here. But they will not launch today. That's now confirmed. And also the LD, the launch director, explicitly said we are standing down. But again, a
And-
hold in the Falcon 9 countdown is always a scrub.
And Adrian, before people say goodbye, whatever, I guess we should talk about what else they can do, right? So today, hold off, right? They have an opportunity tomorrow. If they actually go tomorrow, it could be as early as 4:31 p.m. Eastern. However, as we've been talking about today in the whole live stream, they also have the launch of the CRS-31 mission next door from Launch Complex 39A about 5 hours later at 9:29 p.m. Eastern. I have no idea if they have any sort of issues with that with NASA, because sometimes NASA is a little bit picky and they want to have these missions have some separation between them so that they are able to investigate. Like if something were to happen, for example, on this Starlink mission, then they are able to take a look at that data and clear out Falcon 9 for CRS-31 essentially. And so I have no idea if they are applying that for this mission, but something to take into account for tomorrow if they were to attempt a launch as well. So, we'll see what happens.
Yep, it happens from time to time, and of course, sometimes you get lucky. And sometimes, well, you get this. And it happens. And now the question is, of course, how big is the issue? And what do they need to investigate, right? Like, it could be a thing where they look at it and they're like, probably fine. It could also be something where they need to look at it more details. And that's probably what we'll see in the next few hours, and that depends a lot on if they go tomorrow again, or if they maybe stand down a few days for this and make sure they understand the root cause of what just happened.
These things, these types of things, since we have that CRS mission tomorrow, is the sort of thing that we will ask on a press conference prior to the CRS mission. But I don't see anything for that for this mission. So maybe we'll have to ask another way.
Absolutely. And with that, I want to start my rounds of thank yous here. Starting with 2 thank yous here for more support coming in here. Chris Barnett with 5 Red Team memberships gifted. Thank you so much. And Josephine Makuala also with another Red Team membership gifted. Very, very generous support overall here in the stream today. Really, it helps us. It really helps us out. And again, if you want to support us without monetary contribution, you can always like and subscribe to the stream. That also helps us out a lot. It helps us please the algorithm gods that YouTube has over us looming. With that, I want to thank Alex for being on stream today. Thank you so much, Alex.
It's been a pleasure, and hopefully, one way or another, we may see a launch tomorrow.
Absolutely, and I also want to thank Max in the field going out there today and getting ready to cover a launch, which sadly didn't happen today.
Hey, you know what? That is part of the business. That is what we signed up for. And you know what? It is what it is at the end of the day. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, coming to hang out with us for this mission. And we will hopefully see you on tomorrow night.
Absolutely. And I also want to thank Jay behind the scenes as the producer of today's streams. Jay, absolutely wonderful as always. Thank you for producing the stream. And also I want to thank Ryan Caton and Kevin Michael Reed behind the scenes. I think they prepared some tracking here for today as well that they were about to do. And with that, my name is Adrian Bile. I was your host for today. And yeah, today no rocket launch, but potential for 2 tomorrow. We will be live, of course, for the CRS mission here at NSF. And of course, we would also be live if they go for another attempt to launch Starlink 6-77. With that, let's roll the outro, and we'll see you all tomorrow at NSF.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside SPD off. Say again, SPD off. Off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! What is it? Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.